Have you ever seen a mother ban her own daughter from Thanksgiving dinner? Not because of a fight, but because the daughter's job wasn't prestigious enough to show off to guests? 5 days before the holiday, my mother called with a simple message. Your sister is bringing her wealthy boyfriend to meet the family. She doesn't want you there. Your blue-collar teaching job would embarrass her. I said I understand, and hung up. What my family didn't know was that I'd been quietly controlling a $15 million inheritance, the exact money my perfect sister was counting on for her dream wedding. And when they discovered the truth 5 days later and came pounding on my door in panic, the tables turned in ways none of us expected. My name is Thora Mitchell, 32 years old. This is that story. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The call came on Sunday, November 24th at exactly 6:47 p.m. I remember because I was grading papers on the progressive era, and I'd just written excellent analysis on Marcus Thompson's essay about labor reform. The irony wouldn't hit me until later. There I was, celebrating a student's work on workers' rights, while my own family was about to remind me exactly where I stood in their hierarchy. Thora, my mother said, her voice carrying that particular blend of forced warmth and underlying steel I'd learned to recognize decades ago. We need to talk about Thanksgiving. I set down my red pen. In the Mitchell family, we need to talk never preceded good news. What about it? Well, a pause. The kind of pause that comes before a blow, wrapped in silk. Vivian is bringing Derek to meet the family. You know how important this is. Derek Hartwell. I'd heard the name approximately 400 times in the past 3 months. CEO of Hartwell Capital, a private equity fund managing over $400 million. Vivian's ticket to the life she'd always believed she deserved. That's great, I said. And I meant it. Despite everything, I wanted my sister to be happy. I'm looking forward to meeting him. Another pause. Longer this time. That's actually what I wanted to discuss. Vivian feels that, well, she thinks it might be better if you weren't there this year. The words landed like stones in still water. I watched the ripples spread through my chest, familiar and cold. I'm sorry? It's nothing personal, Thora. It's just, Derek comes from a very particular world. Finance, investments, that sort of thing. And you're… She searched for the word, though we both knew she'd already found it. Your career choice. It might send the wrong message. My career choice. As if I'd stumbled into teaching by accident, rather than fighting for my certification while working 2 jobs to pay for grad school. Mom, I have a master's degree in education. I've been teaching for 10 years. Exactly. Her tone shifted, as if I'd just proved her point. 10 years. And you're still making what, 50,000? 58. Not that it mattered. The number would always be too small in her ledger. Vivian is a marketing director now. She works with investors, high net worth individuals. She needs Derek to see that the Mitchell family is compatible with his world. I thought about last Thanksgiving, the way my mother had introduced me to the Hendersons from her book club. This is Thora, my older daughter. She teaches. That pause, heavy with unspoken disappointment. Vivian, of course, is in corporate marketing. The shift in her voice, from flat recitation to proud announcement, had been subtle enough to seem accidental. It wasn't. I thought about the email she'd sent 3 months ago, requesting my contribution to Vivian's engagement party. Since you don't have a family of your own to support, I'm sure you can contribute a bit more. $3,000 should cover the flowers and part of the venue. I transferred the money the same day, without a word of protest. According to the National Education Association, teachers earn 26.4% less than comparable college-educated professionals. I knew that statistic by heart, not because it made me feel like a victim, but because I taught my students about systemic inequities, about how society chooses which work to value. I just never expected to become a case study in my own family. Mom, I said carefully, I could come after dinner, just to say hello, meet Derek. Vivian was very clear. My mother's voice hardened. She doesn't want you there at all. Please don't make this difficult for me, Thora. Don't make this difficult for me, as if I were the one wielding the knife. I looked around my apartment, the one bedroom in Somerville I'd called home for 6 years. The second-hand couch I'd reupholstered myself, the bookshelves overflowing with history texts and lesson plans, the small kitchen where I packed lunches at 5:30 every morning because I couldn't afford the cafeteria prices. This was the life that embarrassed them. I understand, I said. The words came out automatically, worn smooth by a decade of practice. I understand when she forgot my birthday, but threw Vivian a surprise party. I understand when my promotion to department chair went unmentioned at family dinner, while Vivian's new office got a 20-minute discussion. I understand when I wasn't included in the family photo for the Christmas card because the photographer charged extra for more than 4 people. I understand. The two most expensive words I'd ever learned. Good. Relief flooded my mother's voice. I knew you'd be reasonable. You always are. We said goodbye. I set down the phone. For a long moment, I sat in silence, watching the last light fade from my window. Marcus Thompson's essay still lay on my desk, his words about dignity and fair treatment glowing under my lamp. Then I opened my laptop. There was a folder I hadn't touched in months, labeled simply Grandma Eleanor. Inside was an email from Margaret Caldwell, attorney at law, dated November 20th. Subject line: Annual Trust Review, Eleanor Mitchell Trust. I'd been avoiding it. Avoiding the questions it would force me to answer, the decisions it would demand. I closed the laptop again. But for the first time in 10 years, when I went to bed that night, I didn't cry. I felt something else entirely. A hollow space where my patience used to be. And somewhere in that emptiness, something new was beginning to grow. The phone call replayed in my mind throughout Monday. I stood in front of my third period class explaining the causes of the Great Depression, while Patricia Mitchell's voice echoed beneath the surface of every word. Your career choice might send the wrong message. I taught these students about economic collapse, about how entire families lost everything, and my own family considered my salary a source of shame. Ms. Mitchell? A hand went up. Jasmine Reyes Jr., sharp as a tack. You okay? You seem kind of somewhere else. I forced a smile. Just thinking about how history repeats itself, Jasmine, sometimes in ways we don't expect. That night, I calculated the stakes of silence. If I accepted this exclusion, if I simply nodded and stayed home like a good, invisible daughter, what came next? Easter? Thora, Derek's family will be there. Maybe you should sit this one out. Vivian's wedding? It's a small ceremony, very exclusive, you understand? Future holidays, birthdays, funerals. My own family's milestones happening without me. I would become a ghost in my own history. But the financial stakes were real too. My mother had already set the precedent of extracting money from me whenever convenient. The $3,000 for Vivian's engagement party, the loan of $10,500 last year for my father's fishing boat repairs, never repaid, never mentioned again. The constant implication that since I was unmarried and childless, my money was somehow communal property. If I remained silent, the requests would only grow larger. And I'd keep paying, because that's what the family disappointment does to earn her seat at a table she isn't welcome at anyway. Around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed, a text from my father, Harold. Sweetheart, I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. Your mother says it's for the best. I love you. I stared at those words for a long time. Harold Mitchell, 63 years old, retired accountant, lifelong bystander to his wife's decisions. He'd never once stood up for me, not when I was passed over for opportunities, not when my achievements went unacknowledged, not when my mother made me feel small in 100 tiny ways. But he always said he loved me. as if love without action meant anything at all. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop. The email from Margaret Caldwell sat in my inbox like a sealed envelope from another life. My grandmother Eleanor had died 2 years ago, at 85. She was the only person in my family who'd ever truly seen me. When I graduated from my master's program, she'd driven 3 hours to attend while my parents sent a card. When I got my first teaching job, she'd taken me to dinner and told me she was proud. When I confided my frustrations about feeling invisible at family gatherings, she'd taken my hand and said, "Thora, you're not invisible. You're just surrounded by people who've forgotten how to see." I hadn't understood what she'd done for me until after she was gone. I clicked on Margaret's email. Dear Ms. Mitchell, as per our annual review, the Eleanor Mitchell Irrevocable Trust currently holds assets valued at $15,247,891.33. As sole trustee, you have full discretionary authority over distributions under Section 4.2 of the trust document. Please confirm your distribution intentions for the upcoming fiscal year by December 1st. If you wish to modify distribution terms or add conditions, this must be documented before the fiscal deadline. I'm available to meet at your convenience. Best regards, Margaret Caldwell, Escroll Caldwell and Associates. $15,247,891.33. Vivian was the sole beneficiary. I was the sole trustee, the person who controlled when, how, and whether that money ever reached her hands. My grandmother had made that choice deliberately. She told me, in one of our last conversations, "Vivian isn't bad, Thora. She's just never had to learn the value of anything. I want you to teach her. The only way she'll understand." I'd kept this secret for 2 years. I'd told no one. Not my parents, not Vivian, not anyone. Partly because I didn't want my family's relationship with me to be about money. Partly because I wasn't ready to wield that kind of power. But now, sitting in my dark apartment, freshly exiled from Thanksgiving dinner because my teaching salary might embarrass my sister in front of her wealthy boyfriend, I began to reconsider. Not revenge. That wasn't what Grandma Eleanor intended, and it wasn't what I wanted. But boundaries? Accountability? The right to exist in my own family without apologizing for who I'd become? I closed the laptop and looked out the window at the city lights. I had held this secret for 2 years, and I was beginning to wonder if it was finally time to let it breathe. Thanksgiving Day arrived, gray and cold. The kind of November afternoon that makes you want to pull the curtains and forget the world exists. I woke at 7, out of habit. Even on holidays, my teacher's internal clock refused to sleep past dawn. I made coffee in my small kitchen, watched the steam rise, and tried not to think about the family gathering happening 15 miles away without me. By noon, I'd graded 32 essays. By 3, I'd reorganized my entire bookshelf by historical period. By 5, I'd accepted that no amount of productivity could fill the hollow space in my chest. I made myself dinner. A microwavable turkey breast, instant mashed potatoes, canned cranberry sauce. The saddest Thanksgiving meal I'd ever assembled, eaten standing at the counter because sitting at my small table felt too formal for a party of one. At 8:47 p.m., my phone lit up. A text from Vivian, with a photo attached. "Thanks for understanding, sis. Derek loved the dinner. He said our family is so put together. LOL." The image showed my entire family seated around my parents' mahogany dining table, the one Grandma Eleanor had given them 30 years ago. Patricia beaming at the head, Harold looking slightly uncomfortable but smiling, and Vivian glowing beside a dark-haired man in an expensive sweater. Derek Hartwell, I presumed. 4 place settings. No empty chair where I should have been. So put together. I set down my phone. Then I picked it up again and studied the photo more closely. My mother was wearing the pearl earrings I'd given her for her 60th birthday, the ones she'd said were simple but thoughtful. Vivian was wearing a cashmere wrap that cost more than my monthly rent. And there, in the background, just visible on the sideboard, was my grandmother's silver tea service. The one she'd promised me, before she died, because I was the only grandchild who'd ever helped her polish it. My mother had kept it. Of course she had. At 9:15 p.m., another text arrived. From my father this time. Sweetheart, I'm sorry. Your mother said this was best for everyone. I love you. I typed 3 different responses and deleted them all. What was there to say? He was sorry. He always was. But sorry didn't bring back a seat at the table. I called Rachel Torres instead. Rachel taught AP English at my school. We'd started the same year, survived countless faculty meetings together, and developed the kind of friendship forged through shared frustration and cafeteria coffee. She'd listened to 10 years of Mitchell family stories, and she was the only person outside my family who knew about the trust. Please tell me you're not alone, she said. I'm alone. Thora. Her voice carried equal parts affection and exasperation. I told you to come to my sister's place. Maria made enough food for an army. I know, I needed to process. Process what? Your family being terrible? That ship sailed years ago. A pause. What happened? I told her about the text, about the photo, about the smiling faces arranged around a table that had no room for me. Rachel was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was careful. Thora, when are you going to stop letting them treat you like this? I don't let them. You do. Not harsh, just true. You pay for their parties. You show up when they call. You apologize for existing. And they keep taking because you keep giving. What am I supposed to do? You have options. I knew what she meant. I've never wanted to use it as leverage. I know, but there's a difference between leverage and accountability. Rachel's voice softened. Your grandmother didn't make you trustee by accident. She saw something in you. Maybe it's time you saw it too. After we hung up, I sat with my laptop for a long time. Then I opened the folder, read Margaret Caldwell's email again, clicked on the attachment I'd been avoiding for months. The trust document was 47 pages long. I'd read it once, when Margaret first sent it, but the legal language had blurred together in a fog of grief and disbelief. Now I forced myself to focus. Section 4.2, Paragraph 1. The trustee shall have sole and absolute discretion to determine the timing, amount, and conditions of any distributions to the beneficiary. Sole discretion, absolute. I thought about Vivian's text. Derek loved the dinner. He said our family is so put together. I thought about the empty chair that didn't exist because they'd never set a place for me in the first place. I thought about my grandmother's voice 2 months before she died. One day, you'll understand why I chose you, Thora. One day you'll need this, and when that day comes, I want you to remember, you're not powerless. You never were. I closed the laptop. I wasn't ready to make decisions tonight, but for the first time in 2 years, I was ready to stop pretending this choice didn't exist. My grandmother had given me a key. The question was whether I was finally willing to use it. Friday morning, November 29th, I woke up with a plan. Not revenge, I'd never wanted that, and Grandma Eleanor wouldn't have wanted it either. But clarity. After years of accepting whatever crumbs my family offered, I needed to understand exactly what I was holding. I called Margaret Caldwell's office at 9 a.m. Ms. Mitchell, she said, her voice carrying the measured professionalism of someone who'd shepherded 100 families through wealth and grief. I was wondering when I'd hear from you. The fiscal deadline is Monday. I know. I'd like to meet. Today, if possible. A brief pause. I can make that work? 2 o'clock? Her office was in Back Bay, a converted brownstone with brass fixtures and leather chairs. Margaret Caldwell was 58, silver-haired, and possessed the kind of calm authority that made you feel everything would be handled properly, even when your world was falling apart. She'd been my grandmother's attorney for 20 years. She handed me a cup of coffee and spread the trust documents across her desk. Let's review the basics, she said. Your grandmother established the Eleanor Mitchell Irrevocable Trust in March 2022, approximately 8 months before her death. The trust holds various assets: stocks, bonds, a rental property in Cambridge, currently valued at just over $15 million. And Vivian is the sole beneficiary. Correct. But you, as trustee, control all distributions. Margaret tapped Section 4.2, highlighted in yellow. This is broader authority than most trustees receive. Eleanor was very specific. She wanted you to have complete discretion over timing, amounts, and conditions. She told me she wanted Vivian to learn the value of things. Margaret nodded slowly. Your grandmother and I had many conversations about her granddaughters. She loved Vivian, but she was concerned. She felt Vivian had been enabled, given things too easily, praised too freely, never required to develop resilience or gratitude. And she thought money would teach her? She thought you would teach her. The money was just the mechanism. Margaret's eyes met mine. Eleanor told me, Thora is the only person in that family with the spine to say no and the heart to say it kindly. Those were her exact words. I looked down at the documents. 47 pages of legal language, and buried within them, my grandmother's faith in me. What are my options for the annual distribution? You have several. Margaret pulled out a separate sheet. You can authorize a standard distribution. Vivian is currently eligible for up to $200,000 per year. You can defer distribution to the following year. You can add conditions, educational requirements, financial literacy courses, employment verification, or you can modify the distribution schedule entirely. And if Vivian contests any of these decisions, she can petition the court, but Eleanor's language is airtight. Unless you act in bad faith or breach fiduciary duty, your discretion is virtually unchallengeable. Margaret leaned back. Your grandmother spent considerable money ensuring that. I thought about the text from Thanksgiving, the family photo with no empty chair, the tea service that should have been mine. I'm not ready to make a decision today, I said, but I want to understand my options before Monday. Of course, Margaret gathered the papers. There's one more thing. Your grandmother left you a personal bequest, separate from the trust. $50,000, unrestricted. You've been drawing from it for charitable donations, I believe. The Beacon Hill Winter Charity Gala. I've contributed for the past 2 years. Yes, I saw those records. You're listed as a founding donor. She handed me an envelope. This arrived last week, your invitation for this year's event. I opened it. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. Inside, a badge with my name printed in gold. Thora Mitchell, founding donor. The gala was tomorrow night, Saturday, November 30th. Grand ballroom at the Harrington Plaza. Black tie, 500 guests from Boston's financial and philanthropic elite. The same event Vivian and Derek were attending to make their social debut as a couple. I didn't realize the timing, I said quietly. Margaret's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. Life has interesting ways of creating opportunities, Ms. Mitchell. I looked at the badge in my hands. For 2 years, I'd attended this gala anonymously, slipping in, making my donation, leaving before anyone could ask too many questions. I hadn't wanted my family to know. I hadn't wanted this part of my life to become ammunition, but they thought I was an embarrassment. Too blue-collar to sit at their Thanksgiving table, too low status to meet Derek Hartwell. And tomorrow night, I would walk into the same room they did, wearing a badge they couldn't buy. Ms. Caldwell, I said, I'd like to schedule a follow-up meeting, Monday morning before the fiscal deadline. I think I'll have more clarity by then. She smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her all afternoon. I think you will too, Ms. Mitchell. I walked out of her office into the cold November air, the founding donor badge tucked carefully in my purse. For the first time in 10 years, I felt like I had a right to walk into a room without asking permission. Okay, I need to pause here for a moment. If you've ever been treated like you're invisible by your own family, if you've ever had to choose between your self-respect and belonging, type enough in the comments below. And if you want to know what happened at that gala, hit that like button and keep watching. Trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next. Now, back to the story. The doorbell rang at 4:23 p.m. on Friday, November 29th. I wasn't expecting anyone. Rachel was at her sister's for the weekend, and I didn't exactly have a crowded social calendar. I peered through the peephole and felt my stomach drop. Patricia Mitchell stood in the hallway, flanked by Vivian and my father. My mother's expression carried the particular combination of urgency and entitlement I recognized from every demand she'd ever made. I opened the door. "Thora," my mother pushed past me without waiting for an invitation. "We need to talk about grandmother's trust." The words hit me like cold water. They knew. Somehow they'd found out. "How did you—" "Derek's financial advisor," Vivian interrupted, following our mother inside. "He ran a background check on our family, standard procedure for someone at his level." She said this as if it explained everything, as if invading my privacy was simply what wealthy people did. Imagine my surprise when he mentioned a $15 million trust with my name on it. A trust I never knew existed. Harold entered last, closing the door behind him. He looked uncomfortable, as he always did when conflict brewed. But he said nothing. He never did. "You're the trustee?" Vivian's voice rose. "You? A teacher making barely 50,000 a year?" 58. "Whatever." She laughed, the sharp, dismissive sound I remembered from childhood. "This has to be a mistake. Grandma wouldn't have put you in charge of anything important." My mother raised her hand, silencing Vivian with a gesture. Patricia Mitchell hadn't spent 30 years climbing social ladders without learning when to deploy diplomacy. "Thora, sweetheart." Her tone shifted, softer now, the same voice she used when asking for money. "I'm sure this is all very confusing. Estate matters are complicated. But we're family, and family should handle these things together." "You mean you should handle it?" "I mean, we should make sure Grandma's wishes are properly honored." She pulled a folder from her purse. "I've had our attorney draw up paperwork to transfer the trustee role to me. It's really the most sensible arrangement. I have experience managing finances and—" "No." The word hung in the air. Simple, absolute. Patricia blinked. "I'm sorry?" "No, I won't sign that." "Thora, be reasonable." "Grandma Eleanor chose me." I kept my voice steady, drawing on 10 years of maintaining calm in front of difficult students. She had lawyers, doctors who confirmed her mental competency, and 2 witnesses. "The trust is legally binding and properly executed." Vivian stepped forward, her face flushing. "You don't know anything about money. You teach teenagers about Christopher Columbus. You ride the bus to work. And you work in marketing at your boyfriend's company because he hired you as a favor." I watched her flinch. "I know about the interview process, Vivian. Or rather, the lack of one." "How dare!" "Enough." Patricia's diplomatic mask slipped. "Thora, you're being selfish. This money is for Vivian's future, for her wedding, her security. Do you want to stand in the way of your sister's happiness?" "I'm not standing in the way of anything. I'm doing exactly what Grandma asked me to do." My mother's eyes narrowed. "And what is that, exactly?" "Making sure the money is used responsibly." The hallway of my building had thin walls. Mrs. Patterson from 4B had definitely opened her door by now, probably straining to hear every word. I was providing better entertainment than her afternoon talk shows. Vivian must have sensed the audience because her voice dropped to a hiss. "You're embarrassing us. Again. It's what you do. You embarrassed us at my engagement party, showing up in that department store dress. You would have embarrassed us at Thanksgiving if we'd let you come. And now you're embarrassing us by pretending you're capable of managing anything more complicated than a lesson plan." I thought about all the times I'd absorbed comments like these, the dress insults, the career dismissals, the constant implication that my existence was an inconvenience to be minimized. I thought about my grandmother's hand on mine, her voice saying, "You're not powerless. You never were." "You need to leave," I said. "Thora," my mother began, "I'll be at the gala tomorrow night." I hadn't planned to say it, but the words emerged with surprising clarity. If you want to discuss the trust, we can do it there. Vivian laughed. You weren't invited to the gala. Actually, I was. I reached into my purse, still sitting on the entry table, and pulled out the badge. Gold letters on cream cardstock. Founding donor. I've contributed $50,000 over the past 2 years. They send me a VIP invitation every November. For the first time in my life, I watched my mother's composure crack completely. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. That's not possible. The organization has records. Feel free to verify. Vivian snatched the badge from my hand, staring at it as if it might burst into flames. Where did you get $50,000? Grandma Eleanor. She left me a personal bequest, separate from the trust. I took the badge back, tucking it safely away. She believed in the causes they support. I honored her memory. The silence that followed was profound. I'd spent 32 years being the invisible daughter, the embarrassing career choice, the seat that wasn't worth setting, and in 30 seconds, I'd upended everything they thought they knew about me. Patricia recovered first, her voice strained, but controlled. We'll discuss this tomorrow then, at the gala. We will. She turned toward the door, then paused. Thora, think very carefully about what you're doing. Family is everything. I know. I opened the door for them. That's why I spent 10 years trying to be part of one. They filed out, Patricia first, Vivian shooting me a look of pure venom, Harold trailing behind with something unreadable in his eyes. As my father passed, he hesitated. Thora. Not now, Dad. He nodded once and followed the others. I closed the door and listened to their footsteps fade down the hallway. My hands were shaking, but not with fear. Tomorrow night, I would walk into that ballroom. I would stand in the same room as my family, at an event they considered their territory. And for the first time, they would see me as I actually was. Not the disappointing daughter they'd invented, but the woman my grandmother had believed in. The Beacon Hill. Winter Charity Gala occupied the grand ballroom of the Harrington Plaza, a space designed to make ordinary people feel small and wealthy people feel magnificent. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across 500 guests in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. The minimum donation was $2,000 per ticket. The ambient conversation hummed with discussions of portfolios, philanthropy, and property values. I arrived at 7:15 p.m. on Saturday, November 30th, wearing a simple black dress I'd bought on clearance for $200. But the badge pinned to my chest, Thora Mitchell, founding donor, outshone every piece of jewelry in the room. The VIP entrance was separate from the main doors. A staff member checked my credentials, smiled warmly, and directed me toward the reception area near the stage. Ms. Mitchell, thank you so much for your continued support. The board specifically asked me to express their gratitude. It's my pleasure. My grandmother believed strongly in your mission. I accepted a glass of champagne and moved through the crowd, exchanging pleasantries with foundation staff who recognized my name from donor reports. For 2 years, I'd attended these events quietly, arriving late, leaving early, avoiding attention. Tonight was different. Tonight, I was done hiding. I spotted them across the ballroom at 7:32 p.m., Patricia in emerald green, Harold looking uncomfortable in his rental tuxedo, and Vivian radiant in a silver gown that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Beside her stood Derek Hartwell, tall, dark-haired, carrying himself with the easy confidence of someone who'd never worried about a bill in his life. They hadn't seen me yet. They were working the room, Vivian's hand on Derek's arm, performing the social choreography of ambitious people at important events. I stayed near the stage, talking with a foundation board member about education funding initiatives. It felt surreal, discussing grant proposals while watching my family pretend I didn't exist, in a room where my name carried more weight than any of them realized. At 7:48 p.m., Derek noticed my badge. I saw the moment it happened. He was scanning the room, identifying major donors the way successful business people do when his gaze landed on my chest, specifically on the gold letters spelling founding donor. He said something to Vivian. She glanced in my direction and went pale, but Derek was already moving toward me, pulling Vivian along by the hand. He'd been trained to acknowledge major donors. It was basic networking, and whatever background check his team had run clearly hadn't included my charitable giving. "Excuse me." He extended his hand as he reached me. "I'm Derek Hartwell. I don't believe we've met, but I wanted to personally thank you for your support of the foundation. Your contributions have been extraordinary." Up close, he was handsome in an unremarkable way. Good bones, expensive grooming, the polished surface of generational wealth. But his eyes were intelligent, and when he shook my hand, his grip was genuine. "Thank you. I'm Thora Mitchell." The name registered. I watched it happen. The slight widening of his eyes, the quick glance at Vivian, the recalculation. "Mitchell," he repeated slowly, "as in Vivian's older sister." "Yes." He turned to Vivian, whose face had gone from pale to gray. "You told me you didn't know the woman with the founding donor badge." "I didn't," Vivian's voice caught. "I didn't recognize her at first. The lighting." "The lighting." Derek's tone cooled by several degrees. "Your sister has donated over $100,000 to a foundation I've supported for years, and you didn't recognize her?" Other guests were starting to notice. The volume of our conversation wasn't loud, but the body language spoke clearly. Tension, conflict, the irresistible magnetism of wealthy people behaving badly. Patricia materialized at Vivian's elbow, her social radar detecting crisis. "Derek, darling, what a wonderful event! Have you seen the silent auction items?" "Mrs. Mitchell." Derek's voice remained pleasant, but something had shifted beneath the surface. "I was just thanking your daughter for her charitable contributions. I understand she's been a founding donor for 2 years." Patricia's smile froze. "My daughter?" "Thora." He gestured toward me. "She's apparently contributed $50,000 annually. That's more than many of our VIP ticket holders combined." "I didn't realize." Patricia trailed off, her composure fracturing for the second time in 2 days. "Didn't realize your daughter was a major philanthropist? Interesting." Derek turned to me. "Ms. Mitchell, Thora, I apologize. I was told the Mitchell family would be attending tonight, but your name wasn't mentioned." "I'm not often mentioned." The words came out before I could soften them, but they were true, and I was tired of softening truths. "Derek." Vivian's hand tightened on his arm. "This is family business. It's complicated." "What's complicated about it?" His voice sharpened. "Your sister is standing here with credentials that suggest she's taken this foundation's mission seriously for years. And 15 minutes ago, you told me you'd never seen her before." "Derek, please. What else haven't you told me?" A new voice entered the conversation, calm, authoritative, perfectly timed. "Thora, I didn't expect to see you here tonight." Margaret Caldwell approached in a navy blue gown, her silver hair swept into an elegant twist. She nodded to Derek with the familiarity of professional circles overlapping at fundraisers. "Mr. Hartwell, always a pleasure." Then to me, "I hope we're still on for Monday morning. There's quite a bit to discuss regarding the annual review." Derek's attention sharpened. "Review?" Margaret smiled blandly. "Ms. Mitchell is one of my most valued clients. She manages a substantial trust with remarkable diligence." She turned to Patricia. "Your mother made an excellent choice, Mrs. Mitchell. The Eleanor Mitchell Trust is in very capable hands." The temperature around our little group dropped by several degrees. "Thora manages the trust?" Derek looked from me to Vivian. "The trust you told me was being handled by the estate?" Vivian's face had passed gray and was approaching white. "I didn't. I thought—" "You thought what, exactly?" I watched my sister search for words, for explanations, for some way to spin this that wouldn't make her look like either a liar or a fool. She found none. I think, I said quietly, that you two have things to discuss. If you'll excuse me. I turned to walk away, but Derek's voice stopped me. Ms. Mitchell. Thora. When I looked back, his expression had shifted. The smooth social mask had cracked, revealing something rawer beneath. I apologize for whatever role I played in tonight's confusion, and for whatever's been happening with your family. You didn't know. No, but I'm starting to. He looked at Vivian with an expression I recognized, the particular disappointment of someone realizing the person beside them isn't who they pretended to be. I left them there, surrounded by 500 witnesses, and walked toward the bar. My hands were steady. My heart was calm. For the first time in my life, I'd stood in a room full of people my family admired, and they'd been forced to see me clearly. The tables hadn't just turned, they'd been flipped entirely. All right, I know what you're thinking right now. Thora, that was satisfying. Or maybe Vivian absolutely deserved that. Drop a comment and let me know whose side you're on. And if you've ever had a tables turned moment like this in your own life, I want to hear about it. Hit that like button if you're feeling the same tension I felt in that ballroom. The ending might surprise you. Now, where were we? I found Margaret Caldwell near the silent auction tables, examining a watercolor of the Boston skyline with professional interest. Well, she said without looking up, that was more dramatic than I anticipated. I didn't plan it. No, the best confrontations rarely are planned. She turned to face me. I have drafts of several distribution documents in my office. After tonight, do you have a clearer sense of your intentions? I thought about my grandmother's voice, about the photo from Thanksgiving with no empty chair, about Vivian's face when Derek realized she'd been hiding something. I want to defer distribution for 12 months. Margaret nodded, unsurprised. On what grounds? Beneficiary readiness. Section 4.2 allows me to consider financial maturity as a factor in timing distributions. I want to require Vivian to complete a certified personal financial management course before she receives any funds. That's within your authority. She pulled a small notepad from her clutch. Even at galas, Margaret came prepared. What else? I want to inform Derek Hartwell about the trust's existence and structure. Not to sabotage their relationship, but because he deserves complete information before making major life decisions. Also reasonable. Transparency rarely damages honest people. And I'm not transferring the trustee role to anyone. I'll continue serving as my grandmother intended. Margaret made a few notes. I can have the documentation ready for Monday morning. The deferral will be effective immediately upon filing. Thank you. She looked at me for a long moment. Eleanor would be proud, you know. Not because you're punishing your sister, you're not, but because you're finally using the authority she gave you. That's what she wanted. Before I could respond, footsteps approached. Vivian, alone now, her silver gown somehow diminished by the fury in her eyes. I hope you're satisfied. Her voice was low but venomous. Derek wants to reconsider everything. The engagement, the wedding plans, everything, because of you. No, I kept my tone even. Because of choices you made, lies you told. I just happened to be standing in the room when the truth became visible. You ruined my life. I corrected a misunderstanding. If your life was built on that misunderstanding, that's not my responsibility. She struggled for words, her composure crumbling. You've always been jealous of me, always, because I'm successful and you're just a teacher, Vivian. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. I'm not doing this to hurt you. Grandma Eleanor loved you. She wanted you to have this money, but she also wanted you to become someone who deserved it. I deserve it now. Then prove it. Take the financial management course. Demonstrate that you can handle responsibility. In 12 months, we can revisit the distribution. Her face contorted. You're setting conditions? You're making me jump through hoops for my own inheritance? I'm doing what our grandmother asked me to do. I held her gaze. You've never had to earn anything in your life, Vivian. Maybe it's time you learned how. I hate you. The words came out raw, almost childlike. I actually hate you. I know. It should have hurt more than it did. But my job isn't to make you love me. My job is to honor Grandma's wishes. And I'm going to do that, whether you hate me or not. Vivian stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked away without another word. My mother found me next, predictably. Thora. Patricia's diplomatic mask was back in place, but cracks showed around the edges. You've gone too far. Have I? Humiliating your sister in public. Interfering with her relationship. This isn't what family does. No? I tilted my head. What about calling to ban someone from Thanksgiving because their job might embarrass the family? Is that what family does? That was different. How? For once, Patricia had no ready answer. Mom, I said quietly, I didn't come here tonight to start a war. I came because I was invited. I was recognized because I've been contributing to this foundation for years, honoring Grandma Eleanor's values while you dismissed me as an embarrassment. Everything that happened tonight happened because you and Vivian chose to hide truths and tell lies. Thora, I'm going to keep being the trustee. I'm going to require Vivian to meet certain conditions before accessing the funds. And I'm going to stop pretending that being treated as invisible is acceptable. What do you want from us? The question caught me off guard, not because it was unexpected, but because for once it seemed genuine. Respect, I said. Not because of money or status, but because I'm your daughter. I've spent 32 years trying to earn a seat at your table, and I'm done. Either I belong in this family as I am, or I don't belong at all. My father appeared at the edge of our conversation, hovering as he always did. Harold, Patricia began, tell her. She's right. Both Patricia and I turned to stare at him. She's right, he repeated, his voice stronger than I'd heard it in years. We've treated Thora terribly. Eleanor saw it. I saw it. And I never did anything. He met my eyes. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. I should have said that a long time ago. I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded. My mother looked between us, calculating, reassessing. I watched her realize that the ground had shifted beneath her feet, that the family dynamics she'd controlled for decades were suddenly unstable. We should go, she said finally, taking Harold's arm. This isn't the place. No, I agreed. It isn't. I left the gala at 10:47 p.m., stepping into the cold November night with my badge still pinned to my dress. The doorman hailed a cab, calling me Ms. Mitchell with genuine warmth. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt free. The fallout began within 48 hours. Derek Hartwell announced to Vivian on Sunday morning that he needed space to think. By Monday afternoon, their engagement was on indefinite hold. Not officially canceled, but suspended in a limbo that spoke volumes. Word spread through their social circle with the efficiency of gossip among the wealthy. The golden couple of Hartwell Capital had hit turbulence. Vivian's position at the company became untenable by Tuesday. She wasn't fired, Derek was too polished for that, but she was encouraged to explore opportunities that might better align with her long-term career goals. Translation. Her presence had become awkward, and everyone knew it. She cleaned out her desk on December 3rd. My mother received phone calls from her social circle throughout the week. The Hendersons, the Castellanos, the Morrison Whites from her charity board, all expressing concern and offering support, which was really code for mining for details about the Thanksgiving scandal that had apparently become the talk of the Winter Gala. The story is everywhere, Rachel reported over coffee on Wednesday. I heard 3 different versions at my dentist's office yesterday. Something about a sister being banned from Thanksgiving and then showing up as a major donor. The details vary, but the punchline is always the same. What punchline? That the embarrassing daughter turned out to be more impressive than anyone knew. Rachel grinned. People love an underdog story, Thora, especially one with receipts. The formal aftermath came Monday morning, December 2nd, at Margaret Caldwell's office. I signed the deferral documents at 9:15 a.m. The language was precise. Distributions from the Eleanor Mitchell Irrevocable Trust to beneficiary Vivian Mitchell would be suspended for 12 months, pending completion of a certified personal financial management program from an accredited institution. The course requirement wasn't punitive. It was exactly the kind of condition trustees routinely imposed on young beneficiaries who hadn't demonstrated financial readiness. For what it's worth, Margaret said as she notarized the final page, your grandmother would have handled this exactly the same way. She wasn't interested in punishment. She was interested in growth. I hope Vivian sees it that way eventually. She might. Time changes perspectives. Margaret slid the completed documents into a folder. There's one more thing. Derek Hartwell's assistant contacted my office yesterday. He'd like to meet with you privately. No pressure. You're under no obligation, but he expressed genuine interest in understanding the family situation better. I thought about it. I'll consider it. The email from my father arrived that afternoon. It was 3 pages long. The most Harold Mitchell had written to anyone in years, probably. He apologized for 32 years of silence. He acknowledged that my mother's treatment of me had been unfair and that his failure to intervene made him complicit. He didn't make excuses or ask for forgiveness. He simply said he wanted to do better, if I'd let him try. I read it 3 times, then saved it in a folder labeled Family. Vivian's response came by text on December 5th. Fine, I'll take your stupid course, but don't expect me to thank you for this. I replied, I don't expect thanks, I expect results. Good luck with the program. She didn't respond, but Margaret confirmed her enrollment 2 days later. Introduction to Personal Financial Management, starting January 15th at a local community college. 12 weeks. The first step toward proving she could handle the inheritance our grandmother had left for her. The Boston Society blog ran a piece on December 8th, anonymous but clearly sourced from gala attendees. The Thanksgiving scandal that rocked the Winter Gala told a version of events that was mostly accurate, painting my family in unflattering terms while presenting me as a quiet philanthropist who emerged from the shadows with impeccable timing. I didn't love being public, but I couldn't deny the satisfaction of seeing the truth acknowledged in print. On December 10th, I received an email from the Foundation's board. Dear Ms. Mitchell, in recognition of your extraordinary commitment to our mission, we would like to extend an invitation to join our advisory council. Your perspective as an educator and your dedication to charitable giving would be invaluable to our strategic planning efforts. We hope you'll consider this opportunity. Warmest regards, the Beacon Hill Foundation Board. I read it sitting at my kitchen table, in the apartment my family had considered embarrassing. After a day of teaching students about the progressive era and the long arc of social change. Maybe, I thought, that arc was bending in my direction for once. December 21st. 4 days before Christmas. 3 weeks since the gala. My apartment was warm with cooking smells. Rosemary chicken, roasted vegetables, a pie cooling on the counter that Rachel had brought despite insisting she didn't bake. We'd pushed my small table against the wall to make room for 6 chairs. Rachel, 2 colleagues from school, Maria from Rachel's family, and my father. Just my father. Patricia had called twice, asking to be included. I'd declined both times. Not yet, Mom. I need more time. How much time? I'll let you know. She hadn't argued. That, more than anything, told me how much the last 3 weeks had shifted our family's dynamics. Harold arrived at 5:30, carrying a bottle of wine and an expression of nervous hope. He'd never visited my apartment before. In 10 years, no one from my family had. It's nice, he said, looking around at my books and photographs and the small touches that made this space mine. It's you. Thanks, Dad. The dinner was imperfect and wonderful. Rachel told embarrassing stories from our first year of teaching. Maria dominated a debate about the best pie crust technique. My colleagues complained about standardized testing. My father listened more than he spoke, but when he did contribute, his comments were thoughtful and kind. At one point, he caught my eye across the table and mouthed, "Thank you." I nodded. We were both learning what this could look like, a relationship built on honesty instead of avoidance. Vivian texted at 7:45 p.m. "Merry Christmas, Thora. I'm trying." I showed my father the message. He read it twice, then handed my phone back. "She means it," he said. "The course is harder than she expected, but she's doing the work." "Good." "She asked me if you'd ever forgive her." I thought about that for a moment. Forgiveness isn't the issue. Trust is. And trust takes time. He nodded slowly. "That's fair." I texted Vivian back. "I see that. Merry Christmas." 3 words. Not absolution, not warmth, but acknowledgement. A door left slightly open. After the guests left, Rachel lingering to help with dishes despite my protests, I sat alone in the quiet of my apartment, looking at the Christmas lights I'd strung across my window. The past month had taught me things I should have learned years ago. That boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection. That saying no to unfair treatment isn't selfish, it's necessary. That you can love people and still refuse to accept harm from them. My grandmother had understood this. She'd given me the tools to protect myself, knowing I'd need time to find the courage to use them. "You're not powerless," she'd told me. "You never were." I hadn't believed her then. I believed her now. The foundation's invitation sat on my coffee table. I decided to accept, not because I needed the status or the recognition, but because it felt right. Continuing my grandmother's legacy of thoughtful giving, being part of something larger than my family's dysfunction. And teaching. I'd keep teaching. Not because I couldn't do anything else, but because it mattered. Because every time a student like Marcus Thompson wrote an excellent essay or Jasmine Reyes asked a sharp question, I was reminded why I'd chosen this path in the first place. My blue-collar job had never been the problem. The problem was people who measured worth in dollars instead of impact. I pulled out my phone and typed an email to Derek Hartwell's assistant. "I'd be willing to meet. Coffee, somewhere neutral. Let me know what works." He deserved to understand what he was considering marrying into, or choosing to walk away from. Whatever he decided, it would be based on truth. The last thing I did that night was look at the family photo from Thanksgiving. The one Vivian had texted me with 4 smiling faces and no empty chair. I didn't delete it. I didn't need to. That photo wasn't my story anymore. It was evidence of a version of my family that no longer existed, because I'd stopped pretending it was acceptable. If you asked me whether I had regrets, the answer would be simple. No. None. I only wished I'd done it sooner. And that's my story. If you've ever had to draw a line with people you love, or if you're thinking about doing it, know that you're not alone. Drop a comment and tell me your thoughts. If you want more stories like this one, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. Check out the description for similar videos. Thank you for being here with me. Take care of yourself. You deserve it.